In this episode of Chants and Rants, we have the absolute honor of sitting down for a chat with the one and only Father Corwin Low, a former tech professional turned Dominican friar out of the Western province. We'll discuss conversion, chants, and capes. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Chants and Rants. I'm joined today, or we're joined together in Fort Worth, Texas. Thank you for joining us in Fort Worth, Texas, where we're having a wonderful chat about Father Corwin and his conversion story. We also just want to talk chant. That's what we're here to do.
Okay.
What do you think?
Okay, well, the chant thread goes this way, and the conversion story goes this way.
I don't do kung fu. I don't know.
Well, I guess you could say they're sort of related, but yeah, there's part.
Great.
I can talk about.
Great. So
yeah.
so let's just go to the very beginning here. By the way, Father Corwin and I just did some awesome liturgies this week. We're at this conference, and we did Lauds every morning. We did Vespers.
Solemn Vespers.
Not so solemn Vespers, of course. And Father did, and this is just unbelievable, he did a beautiful solemn Mass the first morning where he chanted in the solemn tone the entire Roman canon. And by the way, just as like an initial question before we get into the weeds, where did you find the pointings or the square notes for that solemn tone of the English Eucharistic prayer?
Do you really not know this?
Is it in the Chants
It's
of
in
the
the
Roman
Missal.
Is it?
Yeah, I can just read it.
All right. So in most priest missals,
In every priest's missal.
it has the note.
Yes, I wasn't doing anything ad lib.
Wait, so it has a simple and a solemn tone, and then it just has
Correct.
the text?
No, it has a simple and a solemn tone pointed for every word.
In the English Roman Missal.
Correct.
So why don't more...
I cannot answer that question.
Wait. You're telling me that every priest could do that? And has the tools to be able to do that? I assumed you did some crazy esoteric research in
No.
some old Dominican volume.
Nope.
And
It's in there. And
What is going-
I know. Didn't you see me like having trouble turning pages?
I did see that happen, yes.
Yeah, because there was a page turn. But fortunately, I know it well enough that I didn't need. I mean, I knew what was on the next page.
Charlie, did you know that priests have the solemn tone printed in their missal?
I don't know that I knew they had some music in their missal.
That's crazy.
You never altar served, did you?
No.
Yeah, so
I'm a convert. I didn't altar serve.
I always saw the priest's books.
That's crazy. Well,
Yes.
beautiful job.
And it's also pointed in the Missale Romanum.
Of course, that doesn't surprise me, but to have it, because like as you know, with my like transcribing antiphons into English, I just assumed that there are no chants that are done in English. That there are official resources to do, except for like bare bones stuff.
The only thing that I've ever had to point are the more solemn prefaces. So, because they don't exist.
Like the Pentecost one.
No, into English. I have to do all of them.
Really?
Yeah, there are no more solemn English.
And do you do that ad lib, or do you actually prepare it on paper?
I prepare it on paper because it's. Have you heard that more solemn tone?
For what? The preface?
The prefaces. The Latin ones are pretty complicated.
Yeah.
And if you point it wrong, you'll be stuck, and everybody will know.
Nice. So that was a beautiful Mass. Not just the Roman canon, but also, of course, Father chanted the Gospel. Father chanted his homily. Just kidding. So great. And how do you get? That's how I know you. We both basically doing the liturgy team at this. You were directing the liturgy team, and I was just a little humble minion.
A critical part.
A critical thinker. No, it was a really, really special week, and we had so much of a synergy and a simpatico between us that I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to just chat about how you got here. You're a crazy man. How did you get here? So let's start. You alluded to Rome being involved.
Yeah, so I was not born or raised Catholic. I was a Presbyterian, and my parents took us to Sunday school and services every week. So the Christian faith was not foreign to me. And in fact, we wouldn't consider ourselves Bible Christians by, modern definitions, but we did do, Bible study, and at a young age, it was mostly, can you memorize all these verses, like hundreds of them? So I kind of knew my scripture from that. But no, I went on to college, I studied electrical engineering and computer science. I went to work for Paul Allen. Do you know who he was?
I was born in the 90s.
Okay, so Paul Allen started Microsoft.
Oh, okay, yeah.
With Bill Gates.
Okay.
And so I worked at a software firm that he started. And I worked there for about 3 years and discovered I kind of had an existential moment that I hated software development, at least this type, because I would sit in a room and code all day long, and then I would, maybe come out for a meeting 2 or 3 times a week for like a couple hours.
Yeah.
And then I would go back into a room, and it just didn't do very much for me.
Hey, it's so funny. Most of my generation who has a college education is doing that now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well, it wasn't enough for me.
And it's honestly, it's not enough for them. My generation's going crazy. They're like, now everybody, when you were in that phase, how common was it for someone to have a shrink?
Not at all.
Every single person now, we need shrinks because it's a landscape of neurotic chaos.
What they need is confession.
What they need is chant and confession.
Yeah.
They need a chanted confession, and then all will be right. But
so
how'd you end up in Rome?
Well, I'll get to that. So I started so I actually left working for Paul Allen's company, and I started a consulting business. And my first customer was Paul Allen, and he wasn't a billionaire yet, but he was well on his way. And by the time I left him, eventually, as a client for my consulting firm, he was in the multi-billions. So,
yeah.
But my consulting work had me going around the world interconnecting all of his projects, so including his homes. So he had homes in London, LA, New York, Hawaii, Seattle, and then he started buying yachts, and he actually bought 2 of them so that they could be at opposite ends of the earth, so that he didn't have to wait for it to show up wherever he wanted to go. So he was kind of wealthy. The last yacht he had 2 helicopter pads and a submarine. So
what do you do with a submarine?
Oh, he was really very interested in undersea exploration.
So, that didn't go well last year for
No.
another guy. But so
let me speed it up. I left that consulting gig and started a new consulting gig doing computer network security. And this was at a time when the internet was in its infancy. So one of my first clients was Microsoft. And so my company put Microsoft on the internet. That was sort of our claim to fame. And so we got lots of clients really fast, and like Fortune 500 companies were calling us and, can you help us do this? Can you make us secure? I mean, it was a big concern. It still is a concern. So I found myself in a situation where it's like, well, I had as much money as I needed or I wanted, and I could do anything I wanted, go anywhere I wanted, buy anything I wanted.
And were you happy?
But that was the question. So my attorney, who is Catholic, practicing, very devout, I had to meet him to work on that Microsoft contract because it was complicated. So I went to his office and met with him, and inside his office he had, well, not 3 jars, He had a crucifix and some icons. And so I was, I went to prep school, so I said, "What's this?" I knew what it was. I was being cheeky. And he said, his answer threw me off guard, because I thought he was going to say, "Well, that's a crucifix, that's Jesus Christ, that's, an icon of the Blessed Virgin Mary, or an icon of John the Baptist." He said, "It's my daily reminder of who's in charge." And that wasn't the answer I expected, but it was very profound, because those aren't the words that you would tend to hear from an attorney.
Yeah.
Because often they're motivated by, settlements and winning cases and things like that.
You hit him with a cheeky throwaway comment, and he slapped you back with sincerity, and you were like, wow.
Yeah. So I got to know him, and what I ended up doing is developing a relationship, like a personal relationship with him and his family. He had 5 kids, was raising them as Catholic, and he was very clear that his concern was his family, and his work just got him there. Whereas for me, my work was what defined me, and that punto that was it. And that was kind of that existential moment that was confusing to me. So I invited him to go to Rome with his oldest 2 boys. They were 10 and 12, and his father-in-law. We went before we got to Rome, we hit Milan, and I said, "Oh, you need to see the Duomo." So I took him to have you been there?
Yeah.
So,
I've not seen the Duomo in Milan, no. But
okay,
I've been,
so it's something to see, because
Yeah.
at the time I think it was like the 3rd largest church in Christendom, but it looked much bigger because it has all these Gothic spires that increase the height and width, and inside it has 3 stories of stained glass. It's spectacular. So I dragged him to the Duomo and his family. And I kind of said, "You need to see it from the nave of the church." So we enter the church, and I'm kind of making a beeline towards the nave, and I turn around, and he's not there. I'm like, "What happened?" They were having a religious moment. They were like agape. They were like, "What is going on?" This was the most fantastic thing that they'd ever seen.
But so they're Catholic, you're not Catholic, you're traveling with some Catholics, and you're showing them Catholic stuff, but
I know,
they're the
it's
non-Catholic.
kind of strange.
But you already had an appreciation at this time for spectacular beauty, clearly, because you're like, you got to see this spectacularly beautiful church.
Yep.
So you aren't a total stranger to beauty, and
No.
And then you have some basis in truth with Scripture when you were a kid. I'm just trying to track the internal, not just the external.
There's kind of this missing part, because when I was in high school, I had kind of a liberal arts education. So we did everything that a liberal arts school would have. This was in public school, but we did everything in Western Civ. So all of this stuff I recognized. And
like not just Aristotle, Plato, but
like for instance, we
fathers too.
We read the Bible as a literary work.
Yeah.
So I mean, it goes that far back. We didn't read like the early Desert Fathers. That would have been too religious. I know.
Not like Augustine even.
We did read Augustine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I kind of knew what this was, and I was attracted to going in my travels, just going to these cathedrals and churches and visiting art museums and whatnot. So I was cultured in that sense.
What happened in Rome?
I'm getting there.
We're in Milan. First we were in Silicon Valley, and now we're in Milan.
So it was very clear to me, just their reaction, that they were pilgrims and I was a tourist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, no, this is something different. So, the trip went phenomenally well, and we all came home, and about 3 months later, it's like, I think I want to go to Rome, and I want to experience it not as a tourist. And so I called up my attorney. I said, "Where should I go?" And he said, well, that's a longer story, but I ended up at Santa Sabina, which is the Dominican church in Rome. And have you been there?
No.
You'd have to go.
Okay. It'll be the top of my list.
Acoustically great. Anyways, I get there very early in the morning at 6 a.m. Mass and prayer start, or Lauds, start at 7:15, and the minute the friars opened their mouths to chant the office, I was like mesmerized. I'm like, what's going on? And I had no idea what they were singing. And
were they singing in Latin or Italian?
They were singing in Italian.
Yeah.
So one of the friars clearly saw my discomfort, and he brought over a psalter. And so I followed along for one psalm, and then I was done. Like, I had no idea where they jumped to. I don't know if it was a non-ferial day. I have no recollection of that, but I do know that I couldn't follow any further.
Yeah.
And so I sort of pretended that I knew what was going on, but clearly I didn't. But there was something about the chanting of the psalms that really just got to me. And like, how does this happen? And why do you do this? What do you do it? You know, I had all these questions. The friars kind of introduced themselves to me, and then they brought me into their refectory for breakfast, which was coffee. And
but they invited you?
Yeah, well,
and you were just a random guy.
It was
in the
the
church?
next day that they invited me.
Oh, you came back.
Because I came back, and they recognized.
You couldn't stay away.
No, I mean, it was intriguing and beautiful in a very different way, and I'll get to that in a second. But so I talked to one of the friars, and he asked me what I was doing in Rome, and I said I was just exploring. I wanted to remain as vague as possible.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he said, oh, well, what do you do? And I said, well, if I say I do computer network security, you know, people, you know, they don't understand what's going on. Yeah. So I said, oh, I'm in computers. And he goes, really? I'm having a computer problem. Maybe you could look at it. And I said, sure. And he goes, well, wait a minute, you're on vacation. I said, I'm not really on vacation. I can help you out. So I helped him out. And, you know, to sort of accelerate the story, I came home, and it was an awesome experience. But I came home, and a friend of mine who was living on the Aventine sent me an email message, and he said, hey, I'm coming home, because I was living there for a year, and it had only been 9 months. And I said, why are you coming home? He goes, I'm homesick. And so I replied, I said, well, what are you doing with your apartment? And he said, I'm giving it up. And I said, could I have it? And I was joking. And he didn't respond. And after a week, he did respond. He said, it's all taken care of. It's yours. And I'm like, and it was the greatest experience of my life.
Did you go to the Dominicans every day?
I did.
And you prayed with them?
I prayed
and
with them.
And you sang?
I sang.
At what point did you start having the courage to sing and not just like read along?
Well, the choir in Santa Sabina is quite large, and so I could sit at the back and sort of mumble to myself, and they're doing that. But I wasn't there for the beauty of the singing, because, small known fact, Dominicans actually are terrible at singing. So, but around the corner is Sant'Anselmo, which is where the Benedictines are, and I knew about this, and so I went to the Benedictines for Vespers, and I learned the office in Latin and Italian before I ever learned it in English.
I love it.
And so that just sort of fostered my love for chant. And to learn the office without instruction, just organically, I think is the best way of learning.
It's awesome.
Because you're not prejudiced by anything.
So many people say, like, please, can you do an instructional video on how I do the office? And I always just tell them, just do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, but what do you mean? I'm like, just do it. Like, it's very profound. Because you want Jesus to teach you how to pray.
Yep.
And he does in the office.
And the minute you think that you're comfortable in it, a feast shows up and you're like derailed immediately. And then it's like you're humbled.
Yeah.
And but it doesn't really matter.
But also, just to push back on myself, if you want to learn to pray the office, a good starting place is sing the hours. So I am trying to help, but I don't explain it. I don't say, all right, in this office we're gonna. I do know. Yeah. I just it starts and I'm singing and I just do it and that's it. I don't give any. But also maybe this channel's about. What am I even saying, Charlie? Charlie's judging me. Okay, so. Was it a daily experience of Vespers?
You know, it's odd because You know how the instruction that of the Liturgy of the Hours, at least in English, it says that you should make Vespers and Lauds the hinge of your day.
yeah.
I was doing that subconsciously.
Good.
Because what I was doing is like, I really want to go to Lauds. I really want to go to Vespers. And then I found myself making appointments with people, and they're like, oh, no. Or they'd say, well, how about this? And I'm like, can you wait until after Vespers?
They're like, what are you talking about?
Well, I mean, many
Italians do understand much more than Americans. They
Yes.
understand Lauds and Vespers. And,
Yes. But so I was there for 13 months, just
amazing.
learning how to do the office, learning how to chant. And I was ravenous for chant material to help me through all of it. So
Would they combine Mass and Lauds into one celebration?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's another thing that freaks people out. The Duomo in Florence. There was one morning I took. I think it was either there or it was at San Antonio in Florence, which is a beautiful church. I forget which. It doesn't matter. The point is,
it was Mass and Lauds.
It was Mass and Lauds, and I took two of my American friends, both who know the Mass. One is a devout Catholic, the other is just a sympathizer. And they were like, is this the Ambrosian, right? What is this? I was like, oh, no. So I pop out iBreviary, I switch the language to Italian, because I can understand Italian. I was like, they're definitely on Psalm 86 right now. It's right here. And they're like, oh. But then there was they thought, okay, this is Lauds, and then it's Mass. But then suddenly the lectionary's happening. They were just totally lost. And that's another weird thing is that, for those of you who don't know, you can combine, at least in the current rite, you can combine Lauds and Mass, or Vespers even in Mass. And it's all very strange, but especially if you are a religious community, I've seen it so many times in Italy where why not just, if you're going to do Lauds anyway and then Mass, just have one dismissal and combine it. And I really like, my favorite thing about it is how after communion,
the Magnificat
or the Benedictus, it's so appropriate to sing those divine
the
gospel canticles. Yeah, it's so special. Like it makes me even like I've done cantoring and some music direction in a parish or quasi parish setting, and I sometimes think, instead of just doing a post communion hymn, even though we didn't combine like Lauds or something, it would be great just to like I might just sing the Benedictus, and I have used the Magnificat before, for example, as like a these
post communion.
Yeah, just that's the most
Meditation.
edifying thing that you can do. But anyway, so why did you choose the Dominicans? So every day you were hanging out with Dominicans and Benedictines.
But the Dominicans were human, and the Benedictines, I won't say were not, but they were up.
Were divine?
No, they were up in their choir area, and they don't really interact with people. They're cloistered, right?
Yeah.
So, but the friars were much more friendly. I don't know.
A Benedictine would never say, "Can you fix my computer?"
That's not true, because I ended up fixing their computer.
You fixed it. You were the free.
So yeah, it was a free resource in Rome and trust me, religious people know nothing about computers.
Oh, we know.
So, just this is not related to chant, but I actually got a job at the Vatican.
While you were there?
While I was there, so.
To help them with their computers?
At the Vatican Internet Office. They were trying to do a number of things, including streaming video for World Youth Day in 2000. So they wanted some help. So,
I mean, in 2000, that's a little bit of a tough ask.
Yeah, Charlie wasn't even born yet.
Charlie wasn't even one of the youths that year.
He was a glimmer.
But Charlie is a second class relic. Pope John Paul II, I have a photographic proof, kissed him when he was a baby.
Oh, wow.
So we should reverence his youth.
His existence.
Yeah. So then how did you decide to become a Benedictine?
No.
There it is again.
So,
there it is again.
The Benedictines were much more professional at singing because it's their thing.
Yeah.
The Dominicans were just more relatable.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why I went their direction. Also, I do a retreat with the Benedictines every year for a week, and after the 6th day, I'm climbing the walls. As beautiful as it is, it's driving me crazy. So,
You want to be out there with the people.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
I love it. So when you told them I want to be a Dominican, did they say go home and talk to this provincial, or what did they?
Well, I mean, I wasn't even Catholic.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
So
Wow. So your
I learned the
your
office.
conversion to Catholicism was but you were baptized when you were younger?
I was baptized, yeah.
So you're entering into the fullness of the faith, because I mean you were Catholic when you were baptized. You just didn't know it yet, which I think is a really beautiful thing. Because I believe, and I've told so many people this, and they all think I'm a crazy person. I believe that the soul of the baptized is absolutely conditioned to hunger and thirst for heavenly music, for chant, for the office.
Well, definitely the soul thirsts for heaven.
Yes, but a baptized soul that has been born into a sort of a spiritual desert without access to the sacraments, it kind of is like that. You know, like, I was the same way.
I wouldn't disagree with you at all.
So like when I was baptized as a baby, even into an interdenominational church, whatever that means, my whole life I didn't know what the longing was, but I think there's a particular longing, and I think people need to talk about this more for this reason. Number one, we as Catholics and as Christians generally believe that baptism is an indelible mark. It's your recreation in Christ. It makes you a priest, prophet, king, and son or daughter. So we can't undersell, if we believe that baptism does those things, we have to believe it works.
Oh, we do believe it works.
We do, but this is a new landscape. There's very little writings in like the Church Fathers, or even during the Reformation about this strange concept, because during the Reformation everybody knew what baptism did and was. But nowadays a lot of evangelicals reject the universal Christian teaching that baptism saves you, and or they'll say that's true, but only a baptism of some like Gnostic spiritual experience instead of like literal baptism. And then, but number two, even Catholics, I think, affected by that. I don't think the average Catholic takes their baptism as seriously as a Christian would 500 years ago, in terms of like an event that really, really changed you. And like some Catholics are like, well, yeah, it's a bummer. I've heard this 100 times. It's a bummer I was baptized as a baby, because now I don't remember it. I'm like, please, it's a good thing you were baptized as a baby. Is it a bummer that you were born before you had memories? Period. Like, do you regret that you weren't born lucid? No. Like baptism is a birth. And if we believe that it's truly a birth, then we shouldn't have any trouble thinking of babies experiencing it, because it's like, I just had my daughter, my wife just had our baby, 5 months old, and now I get baptism more than ever, because like now I know. And then, but I say all this to say, Father, that in a post-Christian world, right, like the re-evangelization, right, the rekindling, because we do live in what at least was formerly Christendom.
Yes.
And there are new ground rules in terms of evangelization. And I think one missing piece is that people sleep on the efficacy of baptism, and they sleep on the fact that people who have been baptized, whether they know it or not, especially if they don't know it, are conditioned by God Himself to receive a rebuke, to receive a prophecy. Like even I believe when He said, "This is my crucifix, my 3 little jars," that's, I think, part of, because you were baptized, I think you were given spiritual ears that were ready to receive something like that more even than, and pagans have it too, because they're created in the image of God.
Let me just give you an example. In the 12th grade, I was in we had class for choir, and I took it because I was in the school musical. I don't even know why I was in the musical.
How was your Ars Celebrandi in the musical? Was it good?
There's no such thing. Anyways, it wasn't like a Broadway musical. It was the Mikado.
Excellent.
Anyways, in the class, the first piece we learned was Mozart's Ave Verum Corpus.
What?
Yeah. And
did you love it or did you hate it?
I loved it.
Of course. How could you hate such a thing?
But I was also taking Latin at the time. And so I'm like, I don't get what this means. because I'm not a Catholic, right? So, hail, true body. That means nothing
Yeah,
to
what
me.
even is that to a secular person like
But even for a Protestant, we don't have that sort of framework to understand that because there's no Eucharist.
Yeah.
We have what they call communion, where it's all symbolic, but it wouldn't be something we hail, right?
Yeah.
It's just, So, there, in retrospect, there were lots of things that were dropped in my lap. And
Who was your confirmation sponsor?
my attorney.
Really? Do you still know him?
Yeah, in fact, his son, who I took to Rome when he was 12, is my mole at a tech company.
It's very
I was
interesting.
confirmed in 2000.
That's the to be really precise. But I like the idea of calling it like coming home. People call it, and we were both on the Coming Home show.
Yes.
And so if you want to see his full uncut story and my full uncut story, you can go to EWTN's thing and watch our episodes on. Is it EWTN? It's not actually.
It's actually the Coming Home network, but they cross-link.
There's a lot of collaboration.
I think the Coming Home programs are syndicated, and
there you go.
And they're on EWTN.
So we have our little talk we did. Awesome people there. The Grodies are awesome. Yeah. There's a great family. Their son chants.
Really?
Yeah, John Mark, right? That's he says, "Hey Paul, I really appreciate my kids really loved praying along with you, etc." So I asked his son, I was like, "Do you sing with me?" He said, "Not anymore. Now I know how to do it myself." His kid's like 12 years old, and I was like, he's like, "Yeah, he prays he sings it by himself." I'm like, that kid is gonna be the Pope. What the heck? So you became you were confirmed in 2001.
I sold my company in 2005, took a year off to discern. I entered the Dominicans in 2006 in their novitiate.
When were you ordained?
I was ordained in 2014.
What a journey. So you've, I say only, but so you've been a priest 10 years?
Yes.
When's your anniversary?
October 25th.
Will be 10?
10. It will be 10.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Do you have anything special planned? Any special liturgy?
I have a mass, but that's it.
And you're doing it?
I don't care. It's a mass is the mass.
Of course. Is it going to be full? Are you going to do the solemn tone?
I'm not having like an anniversary mass or anything like that. Just whatever that day is.
I love that, and I wouldn't doubt it. Chanting the Canon. Let's go back to that.
Oh, okay.
And as it relates to this. So when you were in seminary, as a Dominican, did you freak people out? Because were you already interested in all this Ars Celebrandi and?
No, that didn't really come until later because as a seminarian, which we don't call ourselves seminarians, we just call them ourselves student brothers.
Student brothers.
Yeah, but. We don't pretend as celebrant. That.
Do you have to sell everything you have before you enter seminary?
You have to sell everything when you take solemn vows, which is a few years into being a Dominican.
So you can be a Dominican, esque, because you're not vowed in, but you can live at a monastery and have 10 mil in the bank until you make your vows, and then you gotta empty the bank account.
Until you make solemn vows. You just don't touch it.
How many? How many years in? No, I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to ask you about your bank account because I know it's zero. But how many years do you spend before you take your solemn vows?
It depends on the province that you are assigned to or that you join. So ours has a year of novitiate, 2 years of philosophy, 1 year of an apostolic year where we do residency in one of our ministries. And then I think 1 more year of theology. Maybe it's 2 years.
And then you take solemn vows.
Yeah.
And then when are you ordained? Same
well,
time?
solemn vows, typically, it doesn't happen to everybody, but typically the last years are solemn vows, diaconate ordination, priestly ordination.
So you spend it's a 3-year punch. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so it's a dumb question. I'm going to ask you dumb questions.
Okay.
Because this is part of the problem. Just like I said, Catholics don't know much about, like, the dignity of their baptism. Catholics, myself included, also know very little generally about, like, what it even means to be in a religious order. So I'm going to ask you dumb questions that maybe I don't even know the answer to.
Okay.
I'm going to pretend these are for the benefit of the audience, and that's the only reason why I'm asking you these things. But question number one, rapid fire. When you enter, does everyone who enter thinking they're going to be a priest, or do some people say, I only want to do the year one solemn vows and be a brother? Are there Dominican brothers?
Yes, there are brothers. We call them lay brothers.
What percentage are just brothers?
It varies, but it's a lower percentage.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you something as a lay person. I'm not trying to trap you into being uncharitable.
Okay.
But do the people who not become priests stay brothers because there's like, are they kind of like
No, they
psycho? Are they
no,
like
they because
awkward?
they feel called to religious life, but not sacramental ministry.
Yeah, to a lay person, that sounds bizarre. How you can, which is I mean,
But that's a modern notion.
yeah, because there used to be brothers all over the place.
Yes, in fact, in some communities, there were more brothers than priests, and in some communities, there were only brothers and no priests, like the Christian brothers. That's why they're called
Oh yeah.
brothers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so why do you specifically? So I feel like I've seen Dominicans wear only white.
Oh,
Why are you wearing the little whoop-de-whoop?
this is our what we call a cape or a kappa, and I wear it because if you ask somebody if they've ever seen iconography of Saint Dominic, what is he wearing?
A cape.
Yeah, so that's why I wear it.
What percentage of Dominicans wear their cape? Can any of them wear a cape or only
without
priests?
me?
Yeah.
Without me or with me?
What do you mean without you or with
Because
you?
it makes a difference in the numbers.
What? Okay.
So I would say 0%. Actually, that's a lie. I know a priest in Rome that wears his kappa all the time.
How could it be 0% or 1% if you have the opportunity to wear a cape? You're telling me any Dominican can wear a cape?
Yes.
Do you feel like a vigilante sometimes?
I do.
And you're going to fight crime and evil?
Oh, yeah, I have this story. So I was on the Camino de Santiago in Spain.
Excellent.
And I'm walking towards Santiago in the shrine, and I encounter ahead of me what looks like a high school boys' high school outing, and they're on the Camino. They're probably doing like 2 miles or something like that, and so they're crowding the trail, and they're moving, they're laughing, they're joking, and I'm on a mission, right? I was doing my rosary at the time, so I'm like, I need to get by these people. I need to get by these people. So I kind of rustle next to them, and then I make my presence known, and I walk through them. They part, and I walk through them. So I pass them, and I'm maybe 25 yards ahead of them, and they all in unison start whistling the theme from The Empire Strikes Back. And had I not,
Like dun dun
Yeah, yeah.
dun 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 dun.
yeah,
dun.
so had I not been doing my rosary, I would have turned around and said bravo. But
That is incredible. But yeah, it's very Jedi Master.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
And I think it resonates with.
It does. I think you don't know it yet, and you'll probably not live to see it, but maybe in 50 years you'll be known as Father Corwin, the man who brought the cape back. But that's great.
That's nothing I aspire to, but it would be cool.
It is cool. So another thing about Dominicans, like dumb questions only, right?
There are no dumb questions.
Okay, thank you. That's very charitable. So, who are you obedient to?
So we have
Because you've lived in a lot of places, right?
We have various levels of obedience.
Yeah.
So I have my first obedience to my superior of the house I live in. In some cases, it's a priory. In some cases, it's a simple house.
Are you in a simple house now?
I'm in a simple house.
Okay.
Because there's 7 of us there.
How many are brothers? How many are priests?
2 of them are brothers. The rest are priests.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do brothers ever? You know how in Opus Dei they'll work in a secular company, but then also live together. What do brothers do?
Well, one of the brothers teaches at the Chesterton Academy.
Okay, so he teaches
Yeah.
school children. That's great.
and one of them is aspiring to be a priest, so he's doing a residency,
Gotcha,
or
gotcha.
apostolic year.
So they don't just sit and pray; they work.
No, you know, in monastic times, you would have had lay brothers do a lot of the chanting.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Of course.
that is more or less gone, except for maybe the Norbertines.
Yes, of course.
So the fullness of the office would have been like the high mass, because in older ages there was no common celebration. The priests would be choir monks, and they would chant the office.
Yes, in fact, before the year, there was a pope. I think it might have been in the 800s. It might have been a little earlier, but we can fact check me. But look up. I think choirs used to be entirely composed of priests in the early church, and that might be a historical fact. But I might get
I think
getting my
maybe
wires
for
crossed.
mass, but for the office, so everybody would
Yeah,
have
yeah,
chanted.
yeah.
And then
Yes, I think that's the distinction.
certain lay brothers would have been dismissed or dispensed from the office because they're like cooking breakfast or
Yeah,
meal
exactly.
or milking the cows or whatever.
But then they'd be given instructions like, to substitute, just pray 100 Our Fathers.
Yep.
Or pray.
Yep.
Pray the 150 Hail Marys, and that will be your.
Yep.
But they're still like have to do something prayerful. But on that note, I just want to very quickly have an aside. It's interesting how many things will scandalize. Like a good pious Catholic that should not scandalize a good pious Catholic. For example, I've had people be like, "Yeah, all architecture has been ruined since Vatican II." I mean, there's a lot
was
of
well
truth.
before that.
True. There's a lot of truth in how there's been a recavation of so many beautiful spaces. But one thing I've heard multiple times is like, for example, now they have like seats in the sanctuary, and there's like people in there singing. I'm like, honey. That is how every church for like ever is built, because traditionally the choir lofts are an innovation. The original structure was to have the choir either on the steps, one tradition, or in the sanctuary, because you're singing to the Blessed Sacrament. You're singing to the, at least in the context of Mass. And
well, definitely in a religious order, that would have been true. And at a cathedral where you had canons,
Yes.
that would be
Yes.
definitely true.
yes,
But I'm not sure.
cannons, boom, cannons.
Yes.
They're on the list.
I don't think just lay people would have like gone into the sanctuary.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why it used to be, like I said, I think this now is coming full circle. I believe this is correct. That's why it used to be priests only in the choir.
Right.
Because you have to, because you're in the sanctuary. Another few dumb questions. Do you ever wear normal clothes?
No.
Like in your suitcase right now, I'm just going to ask, is there like a bathing suit?
No.
Do you guys ever go to the beach? And if you do you wear your...
I'm kind of weird. So, I mean, like I restrict myself to activities that enable me to wear my habit all the time.
There's the Father Corwin answer, and then there's maybe...
Right.
Yeah.
But,
so,
like, I've gone skiing.
Do you wear your cape?
I do.
What?
Yeah. And actually, there was one time I came down the hill, and I went to the entrance of the chairlift, and one of the guys said, "Hey, do you bring communion?" And I'm like, "No." Not like this.
Do you bring communion?
Well, he was like, "Can you bring me communion?"
Oh.
But it's not like people don't recognize that I'm a priest.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I've gone on many activities with my full habit. I took boys and their fathers on 50-mile backpacking trips, and I'd have Mass every day, and this is what I wear.
Okay, so in your suitcase then,
What's in there?
it's mysterious to me. Is there more? Do you have several of these? How many do you pack for a week trip?
For a week, I will sometimes pack an extra habit. Because
I mean, what if you spill ketchup?
Then I have an extra habit.
Do you have? Now I know what the other half is. So in your suitcase. And by the way, if anybody wants to write in the comments what they think, because he'll never tell us what they think Father carries in his magical
Well,
suitcase.
I can tell you, right off the bat that I always carry a complete mass kit.
Of course.
Yeah. And if I am going somewhere that requires multiple liturgical colors, I will bring them.
Do you have books in there?
I do.
Which books?
A missal and altar cards.
You don't have a breviary in there. You use iBreviary?
No, I don't have a breviary.
Yeah. And then, do you have like an obscene amount of Tide pens?
No.
So what do you do if you have spilled ketchup on 2 habits? Because I bring 4 white shirts anywhere I go. Because
then the cape goes like
this is, Charlie and I on the way out here, we're so cold on the plane. Charlie was like, Paul, I almost did the thing where I put my arms in my t-shirt, but he thought that would be too much. It would give away that he was born in 2000, Everyone would be like, what is this child doing? But do you just get like, you get an optional blanket all the time?
I do.
That's so cozy.
But sometimes you don't want a blanket when it's like 90 degrees outside.
So do you ever like, if it's really hot, let's say you're at a wedding outdoors in California in July, and it's 90 degrees and you're baking, do you take your
occasionally
cape off and on?
I take the cape off if it's just brutal.
Yeah.
But generally I keep it on. It's also, I view it as a little bit of a penance, like the modern hair shirt. I mean, to remind me that, yeah.
Dude, I think this whole episode just should have been about the cape. This is the coolest thing. This is so back to chanting. How many of the hours do you chant a day? Recto tono counts.
I don't really care for chanting solo.
Okay.
I really want to do it in community. And
it's only natural for a Dominican to want to do chanting in community.
Yeah. So wherever I go that there's a community, then I'll chant with them. Like I'm going to go to Irving and chant with the Dominicans there.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Awesome. What time?
And we'll do it tomorrow as well.
What time?
I don't know. 5:30. I don't know.
Yeah, we can't do it. That'd be so fun. Do you, so when you're alone and you just start...
I just read it.
You just read it.
Yeah.
Do you read it aloud?
Or I do the whole move.
You move your lips. Oh, that's old school. I like that.
Well, it doesn't mean it's audible, but it paces yours.
Have you heard the joke? I heard it on this trip somewhere. Maybe you told it to me about how the old rules used to state
that you had to move your lips.
Yeah,
but it didn't say that you had to move your lips to the word.
Yeah.
Yes. We had a friar that I never met that was notorious for that.
He just.
That's kind of legalistic.
Yeah, but that's wrong way legalistic.
Yes.
There's I think there's a very good kind of legalism. You just like do what you should do. But there's a bad kind of legalism where you jerry-rig the law and you do something different than the plain meaning.
Right.
But okay, so a few more questions. How many pairs of shoes did you bring with you?
Just one.
Dude, this is so cool. Do you wear black socks or white socks?
White.
All the time white? You don't sometimes switch it up?
No.
Because I'm telling you, I could go either way. Because you got the black shoes, but then the white.
Well, Dominicans are supposed to wear white. But
they're supposed to wear white socks?
White socks.
They tell you about what socks you should wear?
There's some document, I've never seen it before, that says that our basic habit is black shoes and white socks.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So you're obedient to the guy in your house.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then there's the provincial.
Yeah.
That is our region. And more or less the provinces are autonomous. And then there's a master in the Curia of the Dominicans in Rome.
So what province do you...
I belong to the province of the Most Holy Name of Jesus, otherwise known as the Western Dominican province.
Have you always belonged to that province?
Yeah.
If you and and I'm just asking stupid questions, I'm not trying to offend or scandalize, but if you and your provincial, is that what you call them, like came to blows and you couldn't stand each other, could you ask for a transfer from the Roman guy to a different province?
So we call that transfiliate. So your filio is sonship from one place to another.
So have you transfiliated before?
No.
And if you did, how common is that, a transfiliation?
It's not that common. There are maybe 4 cases that I know of.
And all Dominicans are Dominicans. There's no like
Yes, correct.
fake Dominicans, or there's no,
There is a tradition. Well, okay.
a traditionalist Dominican.
There are Anglican Dominicans that separated during the Reformation.
How different are they from you guys now?
Well, they are different because their sacraments are not valid.
Okay, I know. I mean, take it easy. No, just kidding. But how different in terms of?
I don't know anything about them.
Okay.
I just know they exist. But then there is the Society of St. Vincent Ferrer in France, and they celebrate the Dominican office and the Dominican Rite Mass as, a core thing that they do.
But they're not
They're
Dominicans.
not technically Dominicans. They're a religious order that, how do they say it? They participate in the tradition of the Dominicans.
They just stole all your stuff?
Yes, but they can't wear our habit.
Can they wear your cape?
Well, yes, they can. They have to modify their habit in some way. So they will wear a little pin, I guess.
That's so not, okay. That's the tiniest modification I can imagine.
It is, but
I love it.
But
I
if
love
you
it.
see it, you'll go, well, why are you wearing a pin? That's why.
Because I'm not a Dominican. Pin means no Dominican. Okay, so the Dominicans are the Dominicans. How many of them are there in the world?
I would imagine a couple of thousand.
Do you know most of them?
No. Why would I know all
Dude,
of them?
okay, because, okay, I'm going to push back on that. If you went to a high school, which a lot of people did with like 2,000 people, you'd know most people in your high school, right?
Yeah, but we're all over the world. It's not like I see all these people.
You don't have a Zoom call once a month where everyone's like, what up?
No.
What movie are we watching tonight, guys?
No.
Do you watch movies?
We don't have any restrictions as far as watching, this or that.
Was the Dominican Rite reformed at all after Second Vatican Council?
Okay, so the Dominicans voted, because we are a very democratic organization. We voted to adopt the Roman Rite.
And Mass, but surely the Dominican Rite is not extinct.
No, because special indults were given, particularly to the Western Province. So we've actually had an uninterrupted celebration of the Dominican Rite.
And you can do the Dominican Rite?
Mm-hmm. How
similar is it to the Roman Rite?
The Low Mass is almost indistinguishable.
From the 1962 Low Mass or from today's Low Mass?
From the 1962 Low Mass.
Yeah.
We prepare the chalice before Mass instead of in the middle of Mass.
Those things matter, like in terms of distinctions.
Yeah. And then there's postures, so you'll often see Dominicans look like this.
Yeah, you do kung fu. Even when you give communion, every other priest just says the body of Christ, and I see you, and you're I don't know.
It's I'm making a cross.
Yeah, I mean clearly, but it's like it's. He wears a cape and he has very special postures. It's good.
Yeah, and the most distinctive part is right after the consecration that we put our hands in a cruciform posture, and it's very distinctive. It's not unique to us. Many of the medieval rites did that.
Yeah, I mean you got to preserve something like that because like you said, there used to be many medieval rites, and they're now unicorns. When did you learn to do the Dominican Rite?
First year I was ordained.
And in the Dominican Rite, is there concessions for the vernacular, or is it still just like a proper like Latin?
Proper Latin.
Yeah. And then, do you have a special calendar of Dominican saints that you have?
Even in the Roman Rite.
Yeah.
In the modern Rite.
And do you substitute other saints to do that, or is it just like more saints?
Just more saints.
So you're not allowed to like substitute a memorial with a Dominican saint that happens to be on the same day?
If it trumps, then we would.
If it trumps them to you
guys.
If
they're higher rank for us than the Roman, them.
What is the Feast of Dominic like?
He's a solemnity, of course. He's a founder.
I like his hymns.
He actually has a proper sequence.
No, he doesn't.
He does.
You guys get a sequence for Dominic?
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
In fact, the Dominican rite is a medieval rite. We actually have several sequences that don't appear anywhere else.
And they just get, even as you've adopted the Roman rite, do they get used or no?
Actually, all sequences except for the 4 in the Roman rite
Yeah.
are optional. But even in our own missals, sometimes they're printed, and a saint will be, like Albert the Great, he was inserted into, he was canonized in the 30s or 40s, 1930s or 1940s. So,
What?
yeah, he was late.
Albert the Great.
Yeah.
The medieval Albert.
Yeah, yeah.
Took it until the 1930s to be canonized?
Yeah.
What the heck? Dude, Catholicism is so weird.
Wait, I think he was still considered very important, but...
Maybe venerable or blessed or something?
Probably blessed, yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. So this has been very helpful for me understanding what makes a superhero, what makes a Dominican, and also what makes a Dominican a superhero. It's been a very, very good conversation. Let's end with just a brief chant discussion. We don't need to chant.
A chant discussion, okay.
So how has chant, in summary, been important in your walk into the fullness of the Catholic experience, into your vocation, your priesthood? Just tell me a little bit about why you care.
Why do I care? That's a tough question. It just feels right. Like, if we're to do honor to God, we should give all our best, and all our best is in chant. Or, in vocal form, sung form. So that's why if I'm at a Sunday Mass, I will always chant it. It's like we're supposed to do it, and it feels right, so I do it.
I love it. Father Corwin, people, is there anything you want to tell the people about maybe the project you're working on to conclude, or anything?
Well, so I was in technology, as you well know, from the beginning of this interview. I used to be in a parish. I used to actually be in a very more traditional parish. So we did the Dominican rite every Sunday, the sung version, which is very different than the Roman one.
In California?
No, this was in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And then that was like at 11 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, we did a sung English Mass. And everything was sung, the readings, the canon. The only thing that wasn't sung, oddly enough, this was embarrassing, was the creed, because it just added 5 more minutes, and it was the family Mass, and so I'll make that concession. And then my provincial, like 2 years ago, said, remember how you were in technology? I think it's time for you to go back. And so my primary mission right now is to evangelize to people in big tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's going great. I love it. I have 3 years to figure out how to structure it so it's sustainable. Every day is new. Every day is different.
Do you have a 501c3 to do that, or is it just?
I just done it under the umbrella of
The Dominicans.
The Dominicans.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
So.
And this was your provincial's idea? Or
Oh
your
no, it was
idea?
kind of my idea, but I've been kind of bemoaning it for a while.
Yeah.
But the sad part was, you can't have your cake and eat it always. So like, here I was doing what I consider the highest form of, sung masses, and in my travels, I don't get to do that anymore. So, only when they intersect, like at these conferences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because a superhero needs a team. That's
Correct.
the story of so many of those movies. It's like, wait, I can't beat this villain on my own. I need to have like Wonder Woman or whoever. You know what I mean?
Well, and chant really shouldn't be done solo.
Yes.
You definitely need a team.
And evangelization shouldn't be done solo.
Right.
2 by 2.
2 by 2.
God bless you and your work, and I just really appreciate the intersection. I don't know how we both have spent so much of our lives in Silicon Valley and not ever crossed paths. So, happy meetings, and here's to a long friendship.
I look forward to it.
Thank you, Father. All right, guys, subscribe, whatever people say at the end of YouTube videos, to Chants and
Like
Rants.
and subscribe.
But why'd you do a thumbs down? Oh, sorry. See, I turned my head too slow. Join us. Join us. Nobody says that. Listen, like, subscribe, watch Sing the Hours, pray the office, and chant.